and changed my ring thing. Oh, that's weird. Right. Because that's how I and then it just goes to less.
Looks like they do.
That for everything but giving you a cup of coffee. That's strange. Should still be something.
I went in and wanted to take a picture of it from the back. You remember when Terry started it? I thought that was kind of entertaining.
Oh, shit on a crackle. His granddaughter came, they went down there. He was busy doing something else with his helper. Oh. But now we covered the first one.
I guess starting with Thomas. Yeah. I don't mind.
Alrighty, I think we're going to get started here, so if you could take your seats, please. Alrighty, so good morning. My name is Kevin Dreyhouse. I'm a junior here at Linn-Mar High School and one of the Iowa District 1 organizers for March for Our Lives and Town Hall for Our Lives. March for Our Lives is a student-run organization dedicated to ending gun violence. Our mission statement is as follows: not one more. We cannot allow one more child to be shot at school. We cannot allow one more teacher to make a choice to jump in front of an assault rifle to save the lives of students. We cannot allow one more family to wait for a call or text that never comes. Our children and teachers are dying. We must make it our top priority to save these lives. This is not just our schools. This is churches, nightclubs, concerts, movie theaters, airports, and more. A child should not fear a bullet on their walk home. We may be children, but we are not fighting just for children. Our lives are precious, and our country must make safety of it for its citizens and a number one priority. March for Our Lives is created. Thank you. March for Our Lives is created by, inspired by, and led by students of all ethnicities, religions, and sexualities across the country. We will no longer sit and wait for someone else to take action to stop the epidemic of mass shootings. The mission and focus of March for Our Lives is to assure that no special interest group or political agenda is more critical than the timely passage of legislation to effectively address the gun violence issues that are rampant in our country. We demand morally just teachers to rise up from both parties in order to ensure public safety. We hope that this event will provide you with more information on how gun violence affects our communities and how you can take action to create safer communities. I would like to take the time to thank the Linn-Mar High School administration, specifically Dr. Jeff Gustafson, for holding this event and being supportive of Youth Voice. I would also like to thank all the students that helped organize and run the event, specifically Laura Gavin, Eritrea Andy, and Ethan Schmidt and Tia Lawrence. A quick shout out to Hy-Vee for providing breakfast for our participants and the League of Women Voters for providing insight and resources. And thank you to all of you in the audience for supporting Town Hall for Our Lives. Please note the cameras around the room. I believe we have CBS 2 here and Iowa Public Radio. So with that, welcome. Today we have, I believe, around 14, maybe 13 guests here to talk with you. We have a representative from Rod Blum's office here on official business, not campaign business, to talk. We also have Senator Liz Mathis, Representative Bennett from the House, yes. Representative Stade and and then we also have those running for Rod Blum's seat, Iowa District 1 representative candidates. We have Thomas Heckroth. I also believe Courtney Rowe's not here yet, is she? No. All right. And then we also have local candidates running for state legislature. We have Dr. Eric Giarday from House District 67. Scott Bowens from House District 68. Molly Donahue from House District 68. Tracy Eller from House District 70. Christy Andrews from House District 95. Scott Bowens from House District 68. Yeah, a little bit out of order. And then also we have Edward Hayes running for Senate District 33. All right, I think that's everybody, isn't it? Did I get you all? All right. Senators Joni Ernst and Chuck Grassley could not make it today due to prior commitments. Senator Zumbach cannot make it due to prior commitments. Senator Hogue is speaking at the Iowa Young Democrats Convention in Des Moines. Representative Zumbach, Marquardt, and Reiser could not make it due to prior commitments. Representative Hinson could not make it due to a family emergency. All legislators and candidates from Linn County and running for Iowa District 1 Congress were invited to this forum, regardless of party affiliation or views on gun violence. I will now tell you about some instructions that we want to make sure you follow during this forum. Each candidate will have about 2 minutes for an opening statement, 2 minutes for a closing statement, and 1 to 2 minutes to answer each question. That will be listed before each question. I will let you know how much time you have. Opening and closing statements will be done starting with Representative Blum's office and then ending with Christian Andrews at the end. The timekeeper is sitting in the front row. When we have 30 seconds remaining, the timekeeper will hold a card that says 30 seconds, indicating that you have 30 seconds to finish your answer. At 15 seconds, the timekeeper will hold a card that says 15 seconds. Please wrap up when you see the stop sign. If you continue to speak after the stop sign is held up, I will say thank you and move to the next speaker. Candidates will confine in their statements and responses to relevant issues and refrain from personal attacks. Please turn off your cell phones now. We request that you treat all candidates fairly. Please remain, and legislative fairly also. Please remain quiet throughout the forum. This includes no cheering or calling out, with the exception that you may clap after responses and closing statements. You are encouraged to submit questions for the candidates on the provided pieces of paper. Questions must be addressed to either candidates, legislators, or both groups, and must apply to gun violence or school safety. Questions cannot be directed at specific individuals, only candidates, current legislators, or both groups. Q&A questions will be limited to 1 minute. Please raise your hand at any time if you'd like another piece of paper or if you would like to have your question collected. A panel will review the questions for legibility, clarity, and applicability to all candidates and legislators. I will read as many questions as the time allows, sometimes combining similar questions in an effort to cover multiple topics. We will begin with the opening statements. You will have 2 minutes, and we will start with a representative from Rod Blum's office. You have 2 minutes to speak.
everybody. My name is Jack Mesher. I'm the District Director for Congressman Rod Blum. Thank you, Kevin, for hosting this event, certainly with all the sentiments that you mentioned about the importance of peace and security in our society, but especially in our sacred institutions, such as our education system, is of course paramount to both Congressman Blum and to yourself. So we appreciate your concern on these matters and bringing this forum together. I apologize that Congressman Blum could not attend together. The invitation to attend, typically, like right now I'm working on July's schedule for the Congressman. So the invitation that was extended was just kind of brought to us about a week ago. We've done our best, and we had to kind of check with the Office of Ethics to ensure that I can be here in an official capacity. Because I'm a public employee and I work for Congressman Blum, it's important that I maintain an important distinction between candidate Blum and Congressman Blum. So I really cannot take too many questions as they relate to campaign matters or overtly political matters. I'll do my best to explain Congressman Blum's policies and his general opinions on issues. But if something becomes overtly political, I'm going to just have to withhold comment due to my official capacity as a public employee. So please, your patience with that or your respect for that is important. Thank you. As an opening statement, I'll just point out kind of two pieces of legislation that Mr. Blum has focused on in response to these gun issues and gun violence issues. The first one would be, this one passed the House. It's called the Stop School Violence Act. It is a bipartisan act. It passed on March 14th. And this act does a couple of measures directed at schools to increase security, response, and to help target and put in tools to target students or individuals who might be of concern to the safety of a school. So one element of this is that it provides funding, grants funds that would be used for projects focused on evidence-based safety programs that could include violence prevention training, anonymous reporting systems, crisis intervention teams, local law enforcement coordination, deterrent devices such as metal detectors or more safety at the front door, security officers, and sub-grants to local law enforcement agencies and schools. So that's one element of this. It appropriates about $75 million from fiscal years 19 to 2028, which amounts to $750 million in increased spending and funding on school safety and violence as it relates to these concerns about firearms getting into the school and posing a threat. One thing that's important to note with Congressman Blum's budget, we saved 20% of our annual budget was returned to the Treasury last year. And if Congressman Blum was allowed to earmark that, his statement would have indicated that that's enough money to fund metal detectors in every school in our district. In our first congressional district. And that's something that Congressman Blum is absolutely in favor of. If we can fix at least security in our schools tomorrow, one way we can do that is put a metal detector and some security guards at the front of every school. We could fund that tomorrow, sorry. So I'll take your questions as they come, but that's just a couple thoughts.
All right.
Thank you. I'm Senator Liz Mathis, and I tell you what, I am so proud of the group today that organized this. This took a lot of work, and so thank you for doing this. I was lucky to attend the Suicide Awareness Week event on a Friday a few weeks ago, and the organization for that was wonderful, and I got a chance to talk to a smaller group of students afterwards, and I told them, as I would tell you too, that you may be committed to this now, but will you be a month from now, 6 months from now, and a year from now? So you have to ask yourself, the more commitment you have, the more the ideas and your activism will hold, and you'll be able to convince people of your argument. Recently in the Iowa State Senate, we had a bill come up that would add the Second Amendment to the state's constitution. How many of you believe in the Second Amendment in the US Constitution, right? Okay, that's where we all agree. We all agree certainly in the Second Amendment and the First Amendment, the right to free speech. The problem with that bill, however, is that Republicans wanted to change it slightly, the wording, to add with scrutiny at the end. I could not agree to that, because then that holds us with handcuffs in changing something 50 years from now. We don't know what our society and what the world is going to be like 50 years from now, and we have to make sure that whatever amendment we add to our state's constitution is flexible and appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Mathis. Hi, everyone. I'm State Representative Liz Bennett from House District 65 in Cedar Rapids. Really appreciate the opportunity to be here today. I had the opportunity a little while ago to talk with some of the students over in the auditorium. And if there's anything that you take away from today, I hope it's that you are powerful and that you deserve to be heard. So I was 17 years old in 1999 when the Columbine High School shootings happened. And it's not that school shootings never happened before that, but I think for a lot of people that was a turning point, because I don't know that it had ever happened that way or been covered that way. People really didn't know what to make out of it. But you know what? It's still going on now, and we've had a lot of time to study what happens with massive shootings and also other types of gun violence in society. One of the things that I find really unfortunate is that the CDC hasn't been allowed to study gun violence as a public health issue. So while we do have lots of research on shooters and lots of things like that, I think we could get a lot more information and start solving this problem by allowing the CDC to study this. As Senator Mathis said, we had a proposed constitutional amendment here in the state of Iowa. In the House, it was HJR 2009. Now, I think I can safely speak for a lot of people and say that we believe in the Second Amendment to the United States Constitution, and we understand that people have a right to protect themselves. But the language of this particular amendment, in my analysis, would have made it so that a lot of things that a lot of people would find to be common sense regulations would have to go all the way to the Iowa Supreme Court. So with something like that, you have to ask yourself, we saw in Missouri and Louisiana some of these cases go there. Do we need to go all the way to the Iowa Supreme Court to decide that felons guilty of violent felonies shouldn't have firearms? So do we need to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to do that? So I think the answer is no, and that's why I did not support that resolution. Moving forward, I think there are some things that we can do to start dealing with gun violence. Something that Representative State, I'm sure, is going to talk about and has been a great champion for in the State House would be high-risk holds for individuals who have been adjudicated mentally ill. I think in the state of Iowa, we also need to be funding counseling in our schools. We've starved our school systems, and so many schools simply don't have enough counselors to really be working with any kids who might be having issues with anger or rage or mental illness. I think we could look at high-capacity magazines. We need to study, well, we have studied the connection between domestic violence and future gun violence. We need to take action on that. I think that there are some things that other states have done as well. In Nevada, they passed a law indicating universal background checks, and they wanted the FBI to be the central authority for that, but the FBI hasn't agreed to do that yet. I think one more thing, we also need to be looking at the rise of hate and domestic terrorism groups, because we're seeing gun violence come from there as well. Thank you.
Representative Art State from Cedar Rapids. I too wanted to thank all of you for being here and participating in this issue, and for the students for bringing this forward and for planning this. This is really awesome. We are listening and we do appreciate what you're doing. So with that said, I want to talk just a little bit about the bill that we passed in the House recently for school security. And that was in the cases where we would want school districts and schools, every school, to have a plan. And that would be a plan for what to do if there was an active shooter in the building. And I heard the Blum representative indicate, we were talking about other security measures like metal detectors and security guards at the school, and all of these various things to prepare for an active shooter in a building. But I think it's a little bit misleading. We spend, if we spend millions of dollars on those things, does that make our schools safer? Actually, since 2013 in America, there have been 301 school shootings. But throughout America, since 2013, there have been 500,000 shootings. So you might consider that our schools are relatively safe places to be, and we shouldn't fear about being in school. So what measures should we spend then? We should be looking at preventing gun violence. And that means not just in the schools, but in our society as a whole. So mental health has been mentioned, but in these shootings and mass shootings, fewer than 5% were people that were adjudicated with or known as having mental illness. Most of the shooting occur when people are in a crisis, and many times there are warning signs. So what we need good risk assessment teams. When you hear tips, we need communications for tips so that students and others in the community can let us know the signs of someone who's in a crisis. In addition to that, I think we need to address those issues with what I refer to as extreme risk protection orders. And those are laws in the state where families and law enforcement together can go to a judge with information about someone who has been acting erratically, threatening harm to themselves and others, and they can temporarily then remove access to guns. Thank you.
So I'm just going to reclaim the mic just for a second here, because I was supposed to have a little bit of extra time to read a statement from Representative Abby Finkenauer, who couldn't be here today. So I'm going to go ahead and read her statement. And it starts, I'm extremely inspired by the leadership and courage of the young people who organized this event today.
I'm a candidate for Congress here in the 1st District from up in Cedar Falls. So I appreciate everyone that put this event together and all of you for coming out today. This is extremely important. And for the high school students here, who are here, who helped organize, it's important to see your voice come to action and come to fruition. And this is part of that. Part of this job, part of politics, the biggest part is about showing up. It's about making sure that your ideas and your thoughts are being represented and that you are making sure that the people who are making decisions on your behalf have the opportunity to hear from you. So that's what this is all about. And so I truly do appreciate the opportunity to be here. I have traveled this district, all 20 counties, nearly all 20 twice now, but all over the district, and gun violence comes up wherever I go. There are 33,000 Americans who are killed each year by gun violence. That's nearly 100 a day. We have to do more than have thoughts and prayers to try to solve this problem, to try to prevent gun violence. And it's going to take working together. It's going to take having these conversations. But we can do it if we actually put our heads down and get some work done. So I appreciate again the opportunity to be here to have a true conversation about how we can prevent gun violence going forward. I've talked about 3 things in particular that I think we have to do. The first is to lift the effective ban on the CDC to study gun violence, which through the omnibus bill we actually did. The second was to expand universal background checks to make sure that each gun sale is going through a background check. And the third is to make sure that we're reducing access to guns for domestic violent abusers. So those are 3 common sense things that most people agree with. And I think there are steps that we have to take now in order to move forward. But thank you, everyone.
Hi, I'm Bernie Hayes. I grew up in the birthplace of the Star Spangled Banner in Baltimore, Maryland, and went to school in East Texas at Fraternal University. Graduated from there with a degree in electrical engineering technology with an aviation option. Came up to Rockwell back in 1978 and worked there for about 37 years, mostly with autopilots. And by the way, I'm running for the Iowa Senate District 33, which is basically northeast and southeast Cedar Rapids, a little bit of Kirkwood thrown in there. So I look at the world to a degree through the lens of an autopilot. And if you think about it, and you look at our culture, we do the same thing. We like to put a lot of things on autopilot. You know, labor saving, mundane work, let the autopilot do it, let the autopilot do it. When we look at our culture, there are places where the autopilot doesn't work, where we personally need to be engaged, and this is one of them. And what I'm going to suggest is this, aside from the prudent things we should do, protecting schools, metal detectors, and that kind of thing, keeping firearms out of the hands of people who don't really need to have them, which is only prudent. What about us? What are we doing? How about this idea, just from back in the day, be your brother's keeper. Be your brother's keeper. I saw a sign over in one of the classrooms that said, hey, if you need help, you contact us, we'll talk to you, we'll sit down with you. Why don't we go to them? Why don't we see the kid that's sitting in the corner in the lunch counter who's alone and talk to that person and bring him into the fold? And if there's really an issue there, we can identify it. But if not, we've built a friend and we've maybe prevented some violence down the road. Thanks.
Good morning. I am Eric Jardy, and I'm running for Iowa House District 67. And I want to thank also the students that got this together. I know it took a lot of work. I appreciate it. I appreciate everybody showing up. I know that this is an issue that not everybody is going to agree on. One thing that I know that we can all agree on is that we want safe schools for all of our students. And I look at this perspective from two different lenses. I'm a public school teacher at Cedar Rapids Jefferson High School. I've taught special education there for the past 8 years. I've been a public school teacher for 15 years. I am also a special deputy with the Linn County Sheriff's Office. I'm a certified peace officer through the Iowa Law Enforcement Academy. And there's no doubt that we need to make sure that students, when they show up to school, have safe environments to learn. Everyone learns best when they know that they're secure. I also, like the legislators said, I support the Second Amendment. I support allowing people to have guns, but I also support common sense gun legislation in the state of Iowa. And common sense gun legislation is not a partisan issue. I want to make sure that our schools are safe. I want to make sure that we have criminal background checks for everybody that gets a gun. I want to make sure that we increase mental health care for everybody. We have crisis intervention for people that may not have a mental health issue but are dealing with a crisis, that we can be preventative and we can stop gun violence before it actually happens. Thank you.
Good morning, I'm Molly Donahue and I'm running for House District 68. I too would like to thank Kevin and his classmates on their initiative, taking the initiative to do this for today and all the things that they've been doing up to this point. This is an extremely controversial for some people about talking about guns. I don't find it controversial at all. I also believe in the Second Amendment. I think that everybody here pretty much believes in the Second Amendment, as Senator Mathis said earlier. The difference is whether or not we have common sense legislation put into place to make sure that the proper people have guns, or that the proper, making sure that we have the proper background checks for people, making sure that those people who have those guns are not a danger to themselves or others. There are lots of statistics about guns, and one of the ones that always gets me because of what I do, I'm a special education teacher. I've worked with at-risk students for 27 years in the Cedar Rapids schools between McKinley and Washington High School and a few others, Jefferson is included. But we also have an issue not just with domestic violence with guns, we also have an issue with our veterans having 22 kill themselves each day with a gun. We also have black men who are 13 times more likely to be shot and filled with guns.
If anyone's interested in interning for a district office or a Washington, D.C. position, feel free to go to blum.house.gov, and there's an application online. Every application is reviewed. But furthermore, if you're a young person or an old person, in our congressional district, we're your representative, and so as our constituent, we're very happy to hear your concerns. Please contact our offices, whether they're in Washington or the district offices, and we'll try to give you time of day and answer to your question and get back to you. So thank you very much.
I've worked with a lot of students over the last 7 years, and one group, SIAC, is a group of student ambassadors that come to the Capitol quite often. Kevin is part of that, and they present policy to us, and that policy is always very contemporary, and we listen because it's really well thought out. There was one of my most successful working relationships with students was Lisa Mooney, the school guidance counselor from here, called me after 2 classmates had been killed in a texting accident. Their car was rear-ended by a gentleman who was texting and driving. And Lisa said there was just so much grief with these classmates, she wondered if I would come here and work with them on something that could channel their energy into some policy that would make a difference, and we did that. We all got together, they did some things here at school, they came up to the Capitol, they watched a texting bill being passed, they were able to talk to the governor and lieutenant governor at the time, and they channeled their grief into something that was, again, that made a difference for the whole state of Iowa. So I think, we take the time as legislators to do that because we can tell, I mean, you guys are our future. You're our future.
Okay, I'm going to talk really fast because I love working with students. It's my favorite thing because there's so much power there and so much you can do. When I was in college, I led a group of 19 Cornell College students to the National Equality March for LGBT rights in Washington, D.C. As an organizer before running for office, we talked earlier, Linn-Mar students from right here, I trained them as leaders and they made thousands of calls to identify and mobilize voters that agreed with their views. I've spoken in schools. When I receive notes from students or emails from students about issues, I do my best to read those on the floor, and I recently did that with a Washington student named Chloe, who emailed me about the gun debate. We cut the video, and it's too big, so we're gonna have to put it on YouTube and send it to her. I tweet back to students. I have raised up students' mail to me on Instagram because I really want them to know that I'm listening and what they're saying matters to me. I've worked with Lego League. I started a Snapchat because my co-college students said it, I need to. And one final thing, over the past 2 years, I have been much more vocal about being an LGBTQ member of the state legislature because I've seen how important it is for students who are in those groups to be able to see themselves in the legislature someday.
I just wanted to commend the students again, particularly those here from Linn-Mar, for their involvement in the civic, not just here, but at the Capitol as well. I'm looking at many of you that have been in the Capitol, many of you that have met with me, and I'm also always happy to come to the classes to talk to teachers in social studies. I want to have discussions about issues. I've also appreciated the emails that many of you sent me, and some of you here that have worked on legislation already for the school boards and for preventing suicide, other things that you actually brought to our attention, and what we're helping with assistance in writing those bills that hopefully will become law this year. So appreciate that. I also want you to know that you have an opportunity that other students didn't have to share your voice. You've got Facebook, you've got email, you've got our cell phones, and I really do appreciate hearing from you, your views. You're not just leaders of the future. Many of you are leaders now. Hearing from you, and I want to continue to encourage that. So I'm open to hearing from you, any discussions with you in meetings, or any way that I can help you with ideas, things that you want to pass in the legislature. Please stay involved. Go to the forums and do things like this. It's wonderful. Thank you.
So one of my political heroes who was actually taken too early from us by gun violence, Bobby Kennedy, I think said it better than anybody else. That this world demands the qualities of youth. Not just a state of mind, not just a time in life, but a state of mind. So I thank you all for your work and your help to get this accomplished. Youth are important to us because you point the way to the future. You show us where we need to get to. You provide the idealism that we need to keep our processes in our government moving forward. So your energy and your help is certainly always warranted and necessary. And with that being said, I do have a campaign to run. So if you have interest in helping and using that energy, please talk to Jacob in the back who's working with me. So thank you very much.
I think one way to get youth involved is to model it. I mean, if we're not doing it, why should they do it? So we can have you come along, watch us, do your homework, do your research, know the issues, give feedback, give your opinion, and share it. I think that's one way to draw them in and to get them involved. And like you said, we all up here have campaigns to run. So if you want to get involved and help with that, like to help.
Alrighty, before our closing statements, I do have a little bit to say. So we'd like to thank our participants and our audience, all of you, for your participation in this morning's forum. I'd also like to let you all know that you are invited to the Gubernatorial Forum, April 21st at Valentine Auditorium on the Kirkwood campus from 10 a.m. to noon. It is free and open to the public, and live streaming will be on the Linn County League of Women Voters Facebook. As a reminder, if you didn't get your question answered, please visit with the legislators after or contact them at a later time. Legislators will be available for a few minutes following the structured part of this forum. And now for our final remarks. We will start with a representative from Mr. Blum's office. Oh, really quick, and you will have 1 minute since we are running low on time. And this can be about anything you want to say. It doesn't have to be related to gun violence or school safety.
Okay, well, I just wanted to take the time to thank you all for inviting us to participate. I'm sorry that Congressman Blum couldn't attend, but I'm glad that I was able to be here. As I mentioned, Congressman Blum is very concerned about this issue, of course. He's concerned about safety in our schools, safety in his congressional district, and of the constituents that he represents. So I hope that you will continue to contact us about issues important to you. And also we do a number of, we do casework as well. A lot of people don't know that if you're facing an issue with the federal agency, Social Security, an immigration concern, that we do a lot of casework, and that was actually my job before this job, so I will make sure that we're looking into your federal concern as well. But thank you for having us, and we hope you have a safe ride home.
Our budget. Our budget is dependent on our agricultural economy. Most recently, the president has been talking about tariffs, and now there is at our door knocking a trade war. I would ask you to be very vigilant about this because it affects pork, corn, soybeans, aeronautics, right? And that is what our state does. That's just part and parcel of what we do. If tariffs are added, it's already going to take an ag economy that's not doing well down. It will affect every one of us in this room because it will affect our state budget that pays for education, that pays for healthcare, that pays for public safety. So be aware, be watching, contact your congressman or woman, your U.S. senator, to encourage them to tell Trump not to put tariffs on the products that are leaving our state, or actually the tariffs that are products are coming into our state.
I'm just going to be short. I want to thank the organizers of the forum. I want to thank particularly all of the students who came out today and everybody else from across the community. I believe that we are all in this together. So whether we're talking about the budget, whether we're talking about gun safety, whether we're talking about civil rights, I don't think that anything happens in a vacuum. So anything that happens to one of the people in our community, we're going to feel that as well. So I hope that you'll keep that in mind. I hope that everybody here will find candidates that they believe in, who support the issues that they support, and that you'll really work very hard for them, because when you do that, you can see change happen.
I want to thank everyone for participating today in the forum on gun violence. And I just want to say that thoughts and prayers are no longer enough, that we need to take action to reduce gun violence in this country and in Iowa as well. And that we need a comprehensive bipartisan approach that covers many, many different areas, each bringing a little bit more safety to the people of Iowa. I think that we need to continue to move on that, continue the discussion together so that we can move forward to make this a safer place. Thank you.
Yes, I thank everyone for coming out today, and for the student organizers again. This was a tremendous event and a tremendous opportunity to talk about a serious issue. I really don't think we have to choose between the Second Amendment and our safety. And I think it is a matter of discussion, it is a matter of talking and about finding common ground and finding ways to prevent gun violence and ensure gun safety. And I think this was a step to do that. And I hope that these conversations continue going forward.
Thanks again for coming. I want to read you the words of a teacher who retired after 24 years. His name is David Blair. He said, "First of all, put down your stupid phone. Next, see the kid eating lunch all alone. Invite him to eat lunch with you. Introduce him into your fold. You will most likely catch a lot of flack from your friends you eat with because they don't want him upsetting the balance of their social order, which is critical to your own status, is it not? But he has no status because generally shooters have no friends. Are you serious about wanting to make your school safe? Invite him to your lunch table and challenge your friends to do something meaningful." And then I want to close with just a brief little note. God did not choose to verbally answer Cain's defiant question about being his brother's keeper. Why? Probably because the answer is only too obvious. Indeed, Cain should have been his keeper, and that need persists today. Thank you.
So I would like to close, and I didn't get a chance to mention it before, but along with being an educator, I am a husband and a father, and my kids and wife were sitting in the back. They quietly snuck out, so I'm thankful that you guys didn't even know they were here. We have a 7-year-old daughter and twin daughters that are 4, and they are, we are Linn-Mar parents, and my 7-year-old goes to Westfield, and the 4-year-olds will be going to Echo Hill to the AK program next year. And as a teacher and as a father, school safety is paramount. We need to ensure that every student feels safe when they go to school so they can focus on their education. As a state legislature, I'm going to ensure that public schools are properly funded again so that we can increase the budget and have the best teachers in the program and have the best teachers in the state and have the best curriculum, and then ultimately ensure that our schools, we have the finances to ensure that our schools are safe too. If we properly fund public education from pre-K through our regional institutions, we will build Iowa's economy again. Eric Jardy, Iowa State House District 67 candidate. Thank you.
I don't have any kids at school, but I do have a really cute therapy dog that goes to school with me every day. As a school teacher, I have worked very diligently with the at-risk youth in the Cedar Rapids Community School District for 27 years. With that said, we need to make sure that our schools are safe, but on top of that, we also need to make sure that our schools are properly funded so that you all can go get the best job you can get when you are finished with whether it be high school, trade school, or going to college. We need to make sure we have livable wages, that we have good paying jobs with benefits, affordable health care, and accessible mental health care. We need clean water and environments that you guys want to actually live in Iowa and stay in Iowa so that you have recreation here in Iowa. We need to make sure that we have that corporate tax reform to pay for all of these things, and again, strong public schools, because without those schools, our economy cannot be successful.
I'd first off like to thank the organizers, Kevin, all of the Linn-Mar students for putting this together. I'd like to thank everyone in the audience for taking time out of their Saturday morning in order to enjoy this conversation and to ask some very good and very probing questions. one of the things that everyone will tell you about me is that I want to hear every point of view. Now, I'm going to make sure that after this forum is over, I'll be out at my table here for a little bit, and I want everyone to stop by. I would like to hear from every single person. I would like to hear what you think, because only together can we all come up with solutions to the kinds of challenges that we face today. Thank you again for coming out today. Appreciate it.
Thank you again for coming out. I want to continue to encourage you to keep speaking up and using your voice. I unfortunately will not be able to stay afterwards. I'm in class all day today and I dipped out for a little bit to come. I've got to get back there, but I encourage all of you to contact me if you have any further questions. Email, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, I'm on all of those. Thank you.
Well, I'm honored that I was asked today. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, all of you at Linn-Mar who put this together for us. I think that this has been a good experience for my children. I think it's been a good experience for our community. Thank you all for showing up. I'm anxious to represent you and take your ideas and keep listening to you, to take your ideas to the Iowa legislature. And I would appreciate those of you who can vote for me, but all of you vote for somebody who's going to increase spending on education. This will fix a lot of society's ills. The more educated we are, the better off we will all be. Thank you.
On behalf of my fellow students down in the audience and I'd like to thank you all for coming. Let's give our participants one more round of applause. I'd like to say a quick reminder. It is crucial that we continue to fight for safer schools and communities and stop gun violence once and for all. We will have future events and different rallies and things until we make sure that change is occurring and that we find some way to make sure that this is not happening anymore. So I'd like to thank you all again. Make sure you stop outside and check out some of our booths. We have League of Women Voters here, Mom Demand Action, lots of stuff. So thank you again.
I know.
Good.
At least nobody jumped up with it. Right? It's just like...